Okay, so this is a Ferrari 458 weight distribution. And these are the front wheels, and these are the back wheels, and this is the car. And General Motors came along and they said, oh, we really like the 458. We want to copy it for the C8. Actually, it's for the C7. So they started working on this during C6 days. And they said, we really like this car. We want to copy it, but we want a bigger trunk. So they extend it and make the trunk bigger. And so that puts more weight to the back. Okay. Then they said, and you know what? We want the pedal box area to be bigger for people's feet. So we want to move the front wheels forward. Now this one's a little bit harder to visualize. So for this, I'm going to use the phone. And I'm going to line the phone up exactly with the edge of the front wheel. So we can determine that all the weight at this edge of the phone and forward is on the front wheel. None of it's on the back wheel, right? Watch what happens when I move the front wheel forward, okay? So we're going to move the wheel forward. Some of that weight of the front end is now being split between the front and the rear. The midpoint of, which was here before, got moved forward. So this weight that was equal between the 2 points is now favoring the rear. So you're making more of the engine's weight on the rear wheels the more you move the front wheels away from the engine and the rear wheels. So that's what General Motors did. So they came out with a car that now weighs 3961, or as Taj likes to say, and everybody at GM likes to say, 3960. Oh, you guys are so good at math. That's fantastic. You got a 99% weight car. It's so good. But anyway, so they got the 3960 weight distributed car. Basically what happens is now they've got an old school Porsche, except they don't have the rear steering like the new school Porsches. Okay. And you know, Porsches, their back ends come down, they don't stick way out. So it's not so much of a lever like a pendulum. It just comes down real quick. So while they are weighted still that way, they have rear steering and they're just really well dialed in cars. General Motors is nowhere close to doing that properly. So what General Motors found out was they were spinning. And when they were under heavy braking, it was like an old school Porsche. The car was spinning. So General Motors could have fixed the problem by moving the rear wheels backward and having the rear wheels mount to the transmission back further. That's one way to solve it. But the problem is General Motors wanted their cake and wanted to eat it too. They wanted to have these really great 0 to 60 times, and they wanted to just ignore the fact that the car was going to be a shit show when it came time to stop or go around a turn. And so, as Taj said in the opening documentaries about the C8 of by the numbers, you know, the Z06 isn't that great, and by the numbers, the C8 Stingray isn't that great. Let's run through, because people have asked me about the diffs in the different cars. Let's name them all off real quick. So all C5s and all C6s, both automatic and manual transmissions, were all mechanical diff. Then when we got into the C7 generation, okay, that's when Z06 and ZR1, both automatic and manual, were E-diffs. Same with the Grand Sport. All were E-diffs. The only C7 that's not an E-diff is the non-Z51 C7. Okay, that's the only mechanical diff C7 that there is. General Motors continued that trait with the C8. The only car that is a mechanical diff on the C8 is the non-Z51. All the other C8s, whether it's the ZR1, ZR1X, E-Ray, Stingray Z51, Z06, they're all E-diffs. So General Motors went from understanding how to build a car with the C5 and the C6 to knowing that they were going to go to an E-diff on the C8. And the reason why General Motors had to go to an E-diff on the C8 is because they felt that it was the only way to keep the car safe. Because when you have a pendulum Porsche, basically a weight distributed pendulum Porsche, there's only 3 ways to try to prevent the spinning. So the first one you say is electronic stability control. Well, the problem is that's a reactive program. It happens after the car already steps out. And on a pendulum Porsche, when you're slowing down from real high speeds, that's too late, okay? So Porsche uses rear steering to solve the issue as well. But General Motors doesn't have rear steering, so all they have is ESC. Then the only other 2 options with the old school Porsches is you get back on the throttle to lock out that diff. Well, with an E-diff, you can go ahead and just lock out the E-diff without the person getting back on the throttle. The problem is if the person's undergoing braking instead of acceleration, now the front wheels want to plow when you just lock up the E-diff without getting back on the throttle. So General Motors doesn't trust that you guys can learn how to drive well enough to have an E-diff program where when you get on the throttle, it locks up the E-diff, but when you let go of the throttle, it unlocks the E-diff. They don't trust that you guys are that savvy. They know that some of you who suck at driving, a lot of you, will still spin the car because you won't know when to get back on the throttle. You'll just let the car spin around. You'll let off the accelerator, and the car is going to spin when you go into a high-speed turn and with braking. So the E-diff program locking is the second way. Remember, ESC was the first, but that really doesn't do it. So the E-diff program locking, and then the third way is you have to disable the brake pressure in advance. You have to be proactive about reducing the brake pressure in advance so that the car never even loses grip in the first place. And that's what General Motors implemented, both those programs, because they have a poorly weight distributed car. And the reason why you never see these cars step out is because of those two programs. That's why you don't see C8s spin at speeds above 70 miles per hour, because both those two programs come on strong up around 80, 90, 100 miles per hour. They become more and more fierce in their application. Okay? So that's basically it in a nutshell. People have asked me to explain all the different diffs and the different cars. So I'm not going to lie. I've only driven a non-Z51 C7 like one time very briefly. I did notice that I liked the way it handled, but I really didn't understand at the time the problems with the mechanical diffs, or excuse me, the problem with the E-diffs, with the glitches and everything. I've got some products coming out, guys, that are going to change things, but I got to release them in phases because I'm not completely made of money. I got to release things in phases and start making profit on the first product. But what I can tell you is the upcoming gauntlet of products that I have coming for these cars, it's gonna be revolutionary what we have coming. So I just figured I'd explain all this stuff to you, and we'll leave it at that. I'll let you guys go. That's what General Motors did. That's why they have to have these programs. That's why they had to implement Global B. That's why they couldn't have the mid-engine Corvette be the C7, is because they didn't have Global B ready yet. They had to keep everybody locked out of the program. And that's it. In addition to the lack of the fuel pumps, see that the C601 was the end of the fuel capacity of the car. And that was like 630 horsepower. That's where General Motors knew the real limit was to the fuel pump. Then with the C7, General Motors went up to 650, and they knew that they were running lean at times, and it's part of their pre-planned planned obsolescence for the motors. The motors experience detonation, and so do the ZR1 motors at times. They experience detonation because of voltage swings that affect the low-side fuel pump. The E-diffs also self-destruct with voltage glitches, voltage swings. So it's all planned obsolescence. See ya.